the Prime Minister and his Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, have both refused to rule out taxes such as increases to inheritance tax and introducing a wealth tax based on the value of your wealth, maybe your property, maybe the amount of money you've got. And that's worrying. They've also talked about a painful budget. Those are the exact words, a painful budget. And this is because they've suddenly found this black hole that they didn't know about in the public finances. Well, they're public finances, right? And they had access to all the same information, but this money is suddenly gone. They're asking Rishi, where's this 20 billion gone? Did it fall at the back of the sofa here? I don't know. But now they're saying, well, I know we didn't say that before the election, but now we are going to have to increase taxes because of this black hole. That's the message they're going to keep pumping out, because as usual, these politicians think we're all idiots and we just buy this stuff. But unfortunately, we're stuck with these guys for the next 5 years, so we have to live with it. But definitely, I think capital gains tax, inheritance tax, they're going to look at that because they're easy pickings, right? And then a wealth tax, which would be much more controversial if they were going to introduce a wealth tax. And this could be based on just having a big house. It could be based on having a house that happened to go from, when you bought it, it was 50,000, now it's 1 million. And suddenly they think, well, you've got to pay tax. It doesn't mean you're wealthy. It just means you've got an expensive house that you might want to leave to your children, or you might want to take out some money from in a form of an equity release to give to them to help to buy their property. But this is the sort of things they're saying is because of this black hole and because we need to help this broken economy, the broken NHS and that sort of stuff. I mean, I've used the NHS for reasons. It's not broken. It's busy, but it's been good. So, and they're saying we need to take from people with broad shoulders. Broad shoulders. Does that mean the people who go down the gym? No, it's a metaphor for saying people who can carry the load better than other people with narrow shoulders. So it's people that have worked hard, people that have built up savings, people that have started a business, taken the risk of starting a business, maybe remortgage their house to buy another house to rent out to people, taking that risk of having other people in your home that might smash it up, and building up that money there. Or it could be people that have saved all their life and now they're the ones with the broad shoulders, so we're going to take that money from them and give it to people that haven't saved all their lives. And it doesn't make sense. Or give it to train drivers because they're in a union and they're on strike and the unions support the party, so we're going to give that money to them. I know they're already earning 60,000 a year for driving a train that could drive itself, but we have to give them a big pay rise. Wow. Are the people with broad shoulders going to pay for that, or for a massive pay rise to public sector workers? Now, I know this sounds like a bit of a rant here, and it is a rant, because I'm fed up paying taxes. I'm fed up paying taxes from when you're born to when you die, and then they've got their hand out all the time. When I had a business, I was paying taxes for profits, corporation tax, right? I was paying tax on income tax that I drew out, any money I drew out of the company, I paid income tax and national insurance on that. My employees, we had to collect their tax and give it to the government. If we didn't give it to them on time, we had an automatic fine. And then I had to pay an employer contribution towards their national insurance. So their national insurance was paid, we deducted that, but we had to pay an extra amount on top of that employer contribution national insurance, which is a further tax on employment. Okay, then we had to try and sort out, because they couldn't save in their own pensions, we had to start deducting money for their pensions because they couldn't do it themselves. So that's another administrative cost to us. VAT, collecting VAT on behalf of the government. If you didn't pay that on time, didn't put your returns in on time, automatic fine. And I got fed up with all this, And then if we sold the business, we'd pay capital gains for a share of the profits, like the mafia standing there saying, we want our share. And then, you build up this wealth, and if you die, you pass it on to your children. They want their money, their share of that as well, inheritance tax. Okay. Now look, if you get your house in order, there are ways that you can mitigate or even eliminate many of these taxes, because capital gains tax is definitely something they're going to look at, because that's easy pickings. Okay. Landlords and that's all, they're easy pickings. Okay. Because they're probably not going to vote Labour anyway, so why not let's go after them? And you can avoid things like inheritance tax if you structure yourself in the right way, if you get the right advice early on. you can structure things so that you're not paying so much in this, or your family are not paying, or you're passing it on to the right people. It involves things like wills, trusts, having the property structured in the right way. Is it tenants in common or is it joint tenancy? Think about that. Now, if you need help with that, I work with a very good team of accountants. They're a medium-sized firm, not as expensive as the Price Waterhouse is, but I think their advice is just as good. But they're not one-man bands either. And they've helped me, they've helped my mum as well, and I think, and a lot of other people that I've referred to them, and I think they're good people. I use them because I can't give professional tax advice myself, but I've seen how people are struggling with things like Section 24, for instance, this tax on landlords that's killing many landlords. It's making them want to just get out of it, you know. And if you're suffering from any of these things and you need help with it, email me at charles@charleskelly.net. But yeah, I am fed up with taxes. We pay far too much tax in this country. We're taxed on our income. Then when we go to spend it, there's VAT. Okay. Then if you save it, they want tax on the money that you've earned from your savings. You know, when you buy a house, they take huge amounts now in stamp duty. And people are buying houses, are removing the burden of the state to provide that house for them. They're not sitting there saying, "Oh, I've got nowhere to live. Oh, you have to give me a house. I'm a single," all that sort of stuff. They're saying, "No, we're going to row our own boat and save up for years sometimes and take the risk of buying our own property, paying all those taxes, the stamp duty and the registration fees and all those sorts of things, council tax, paying all those local taxes as well, and then the government are going to come after me for a wealth tax. It's just wrong. It's immoral." I know the country has to run. I know they need money for all these things they blow it on. But on the other hand, you've got to get things under control. The state has grown far too big. Roughly half the working population in one way or another, indirectly or directly, work for the government in one way or another. There's all these quangos, there's all these government agencies and God knows what else that are all sucking money out of the system and not producing anything for it. We need businesses that produce things. The government are not going to change anything. The businesses have to produce the wealth in this country, and it's small to medium-sized businesses employing people that become bigger businesses that employ something like 60% of the people in this country are employed in small to medium-sized businesses. So they're very important. And if you keep putting up their taxes, they are going to say, "We're off. We're out of here, man. We're fed up with this." And they will just piss off and go somewhere else where they're treated better and where they're paying less tax. And it's already happening. We're already seeing a brain drain already. I know lots of millionaires that are planning to leave the country because they're fed up with paying high corporation taxes, higher taxes all round. We saw this actually in the Labour government of the 60s and 70s. They put up taxes to an extent where the top rate of tax was 98%. And we had a thing called a brain drain. We had this thing called a tax exile. I'd never heard this expression, tax exile. People have become tax exiles. They've gone to America, they've gone to France, they've gone anywhere to get away from the taxes here. One of the famous ones I do remember was the Rolling Stones. And in a documentary I saw recently, they were literally going bust. They had all these hits from the 60s, right? Can't Get No Satisfaction and all these hits, right? You might have heard, right? Mick Jagger strutting around. You'd have thought they'd be multi-millionaires, but they were actually going bankrupt under the burden of taxes. Also, they had some management problems as well, but they just couldn't take it. And they left. They became tax exiles and actually made an album. I don't know if it's anything to do with it. It was called Exile on Main Street. They actually made the album in the south of France. There's a very good documentary about that as well. And they literally had to get away in order to start breathing again, so that they came back and they do things as well, and now later on, but they were high profile people who had to leave the country. So if you put up taxes, you're going to lose the best and the brightest. You're going to lose the money, and they'll just go somewhere else, and those countries will gain from that. If you keep taxes at a sensible level, they will come in, they will invest in the country, and they will leave their investment here. Ireland currently has a corporation tax roughly half of that of the UK, so they can go a few hundred miles over the water into Dublin and run a business from there and pay less tax. So it's all, we're seeing tech companies already do this, right? Now, not every business can just uproot and go, but certainly businesses that can be run virtually or from home. A lot of people are going to countries like Dubai and Portugal. Young entrepreneurs. These are the people we need in this country. So let's not stop pissing them off with higher taxes, and then you can build an economy by keeping taxes low. And when Thatcher came in, I'm not pushing Thatcher or the Conservatives, but when they came in, they immediately dropped taxes. They dropped the highest rates of taxes to a sensible level. They still had taxes. And what happened? That the amount they were receiving in revenue went up. Yes, but if you put taxes too high and people leave, your tax take, the amount you actually get back in taxes, will go down. So be very careful, Rachel Reeves. Be very careful, Kier Starmer, because you don't want to piss off the very people you need to really build the economy and grow the economy so that everybody can benefit. Governments don't grow the economy. Governments are supposed to put the things in place to make the framework right and to make the structure in the country right to attract businesses, to attract investments in the country. And it's the businesses who grow the country. So going around saying we're going to nationalise everything, we're going to take over everything to make it government run, and British Energy, we're going to nationalise the railways and all that stuff. No, that's not the right way to do it. Sorry, it's another little rant here, but everyone thinks, oh, the railways should be the government control. The railways they were not invented by the government, okay? The railways started off as private enterprises. They were profitable. The buses were private in London and they made money. Private enterprises formed the original London Transport, were rail companies that formed those businesses. They were businesses, and they started off this movement out of London, and they built houses around the rail tracks in places like Harrow, where they built huge communities around. They bought up land either side of the railway that they were building, and people started commuting into London. People started going into London on shopping trips from out of London, and they were private businesses until they become nationalised by the government. And then in a lot of cases they started losing money, especially the railways lost huge amounts of money under nationalisation, and a lot of car companies were nationalised. They just lost money left, right, and that's what ruined the car industry in this country. So it's private enterprise, it's businesses that build economies, not governments, okay? Governments, even when they say we're going to build all these houses, no, it's builders that build houses. They're not going to build anything. You know, Rachel Reeves today, she was in a factory in Glasgow saying, we need to build this economy. She's not doing anything. She's a bureaucrat from the Bank of England, her previous job. You need businesses, and you need to make the tax environment right for businesses to stay here in this country. That's the end of my rant today. Thanks very much for listening. Bye for now. If you need any help with tax or anything, or Section 24, email me. I'll put an email in there, charles@charleskelly.net. Thank you.